Hey Belly Answers, so today I'm going to be answering a question on our coffee talk about whether to practice in front of mirrors or not. I get that question all the time. They're both good. That's the way I'm going to answer that for you. When you're a beginner and you want to make sure that you're getting the moves right, you definitely want to practice in front of mirrors. In fact, I don't never teach anywhere where there are no mirrors. And I've had before show up in a class or a workshop, when I was invited somewhere and someone would show me a place that doesn't have any mirrors. And I'm like, I can't really teach here, So if it's a beginner's class, I would never do it. So if you're a beginner, I would totally say, make sure you watch every move that you do. For many reasons. First of all, you definitely, see the movement of the muscles, right or not. If you're supposed to push your hip so far, you can see how far you're pushing the hip, okay? Of course, it is a little bit of, muscle memory from your side that's going to say, oh, I feel that muscle being pulled or whatever, and so I know I'm using the right muscle. But still, being able to see how far you were able to go, or whether even that visually that movement is big enough, or if you should push a little bit more, is important when you're a beginner. So that's definitely important. The other thing is, when you're a beginner especially, you really tend to forget about posture, you tend to forget about arms, you just forget about a lot of other things that are actually very important to the dance, because they frame the whole dance and they make it look the right way. It's like you have a beautiful picture, but if it doesn't have a frame, on a nice wall, it really, it doesn't have much value to most people because you can't really see it visually. So it's the same thing, with moves. You can do hip stuff very well, you can do shimmies very well, but if you don't hold a good frame with it, it doesn't look good. So like this obviously doesn't look good. But a lot of times when we focus on the one move, we forget about everything else that makes that move look good, which is your arm, your posture, etc. So having that mirror really will help catch those mistakes. When you start leaning forward like this, doing your hip kicks, and because you're like focused, you can tell yourself, push that chest up, shoulders back, give me that frame. Same thing when you start seeing, a lot of times you see this in dancers when they begin, just like their hands start to go down here when you're supposed to hold in this position like this with his fingers up. So that happens because your mind is focused on something else. And it does take a lot of practice before you're able to, not think about one move, and so you're thinking about the other move, and so you can put the two moves together. But in the beginning, it's important to remind yourself the posture is very important, and the music and the mirrors do that for you, okay? So it's definitely important in the beginning. It is also important, even if you're not a beginner, especially when you're doing choreography, okay? If you have a group of people that's supposed to be performing together, it is important to do it all in front of mirrors and see how you all do it together, and if somebody's doing it differently than the other, or if you're not all going at the same time, which is something you're not going to be able to tell easily if you don't have mirrors, if you're not practicing having mirrors. So for learning purposes, it is very important to do so. But when it comes to just like having fun with the dance, practicing, choreography that you already know, and you don't really have problems with your posture, it's really not that important to do so. The other thing too, talking about choreography is, when you have a group of people that is performing something together, it's important to see how it all looks together with everybody else and make sure everybody else does exactly the same things together practicing in front of mirrors. But you're not going to have to do that on stage. So it's important that you learn it with mirrors until it looks good, and every little thing that needs to be corrected has been corrected, to not practice in front of mirrors anymore. Stop doing that before your performance and just practice the wall. When that really doesn't apply necessarily just if you're a group, but also for individuals. If you're practicing a choreography, you do it in front of the mirror just to make sure the moves are looking good, but then you practice without a mirror because on stage you have to do it without a mirror, obviously, okay? So that's something to keep in mind, because that's a mistake a lot of dancers do when they just learn their first choreographies in the beginning. The other thing too about the mirrors is that they tend to give you a sense of direction. It's like, this is the front, whatever the mirror is that's the front. And we forget that when you're on stage, the front could be different depending on where you're walking from. Because most studios, have like one main door, right? And then you walk in that door, and so that becomes always your entrance. So you plan a lot of different things based on that entrance. The entrance is on the right or on the left. But on stage, that could be completely different. Okay, you don't enter from a specific side all the time. You never know what you're going to do with your performance and how you're going to enter and exit. So it's important to like do everything the opposite direction all the time. So if I'm always coming on the left because that's where my studio door is, then practice it coming on the left because, you know, or on the right or vice versa, because that's what you might have to do on stage. So those are little details, but they're really, really important. They can throw you off on stage and make something that you practice so hard to perform perfectly not be as good as you want it to be, or as you hoped for it to be, or as it should be because of all the work that you put into it. So make sure you always focus on those details when you are using mirrors all the time. So that's what I have to say about the mirrors. Hopefully that answers you guys' questions. If you have any other questions, make sure you always ask. Email, post, I pay attention to those. The video might not come soon to answer it, but it will come eventually because I have so many requests from you guys and just very little time in life. You know how it is. Okay, so I'll see you guys next time. Check out the website, freebellydanceclasses.com. Bye.